Walking the Camino Frances was truly the experience of a lifetime, but I made a couple mistakes along the way. And honestly, this is going to be a little bit hard for me to admit because I'm a perfectionist and I hate admitting my mistakes. But for the sake of this video, I hope that someone can learn from the mistakes I made as a first-time pilgrim on the Camino Frances. Before we get started, a little bit about me. I'm Jen, and on this channel, I share about mindful travel that changes you. I walked the Camino Frances from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France to Santiago de Compostela in Spain from the middle of August to the middle of September. All right, let's get into it. Mistake number one, booking too little time for the entire journey. I underestimated the time I needed on the Camino. I booked a trip that was 40 days total, including my travel day leaving my home in Los Angeles and flying to Barcelona, and the day flying from Barcelona back to LA. This left me with 38 days total. And so what ended up happening is I took 2 nights in Barcelona to recover from jet lag, 1 night in Saint-Jean before starting the Camino, 1 night in Orason, and 1 night back in Barcelona before my flight the next day to Los Angeles. That left me with 33 days to walk the Camino, which basically meant if I did it, I wouldn't be able to take 1 rest day. No rest days at all. But in reality, I really needed to take some rest days. There was no way I was not going to stop at all. So I ended up having to skip a few stages of the Camino. I was really heartbroken about this. I wanted to walk every single step of the way to Santiago, and this was very difficult for me. But ultimately, I took 2 rest days only, and I really needed those days. So in the end, I did need to take the bus or train and skip a few stages. So if I were to do it again, I would book 45 days in Spain, or if you can afford it, book a one-way flight to Europe, and then when you're halfway through your Camino, you can get a sense of how much time you need and then book your return flight home wherever you're headed. Mistake number 2, not weighing my backpack in advance. So I packed everything in my backpack the morning of my flight, and I realized it was just a little bit too heavy. So at the very last minute, 2 hours before leaving, I had to decide on what to bring and what to leave. This was a little bit of a scramble. Fortunately, I managed to get it under 20 pounds, which is about 9 kilograms, which is still pretty heavy because that doesn't account for water. Water adds a lot of weight. Some of this was due to the camera equipment I was bringing in order to make my videos, but if I could give you any advice, I would say pack your bag at least a week in advance and weigh it so you can have that time to decide, do I really need this or do I really need that? The general rule of thumb for reference is to carry no more than 10% of your body weight. That's the recommendation. Okay, mistake number 3, not putting Vaseline in between my toes from the very beginning. I had read online on forums that Vaseline is a lifesaver. Put it all over your feet. I had read this, so I brought a little Vaseline with me. But did I take that advice on the first 3 days of the Camino? No, I didn't. The idea behind the Vaseline is to prevent blisters because there's a lot of friction going on in your foot, in your shoe, right? So the Vaseline just lets everything glide a little smoother and stops that friction and stops that blister from forming. And so once my blisters did begin to heal, I put Vaseline on my feet every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, and I never got a blister again. Mistake number 4, not buying trekking poles earlier. So at home, I don't use trekking poles. When I go hiking, I've never used trekking poles before, and I didn't know how to use them properly. So I thought, I'm gonna walk the Camino without them. Well, that was a mistake. I ended up buying them in Pamplona, but I definitely wish I had bought them in Saint-Jean because some of the steepest portions that I faced were before Pamplona. Fortunately, a few pilgrims along the way let me borrow theirs, and I tested them out for like a mile or two, and I easily saw how great they are to help with balance and stability, especially going downhill. So my recommendation to you is definitely buy your trekking poles from the very beginning of your Camino. Okay, mistake number 5, choosing the wrong shoe size. So I don't know why, but somehow this information evaded my research beforehand. I didn't realize you really need to buy a half size bigger than your normal size in the shoe that you're planning on bringing. So I'm normally a size 9, and I definitely should have gotten a size 9.5, because the reason is because your feet swell. When you're walking long distances, especially in a high heat situation, your feet are gonna get bigger, and that's gonna create blisters. So definitely size up on your shoe. Okay, mistake number 6, packing my bag in the mornings. So nearly almost every day, I would be so tired at the end of the day that I wouldn't repack my bag the night before. I would pack my bag mostly in the mornings, which is actually pretty disruptive to other people who might still be sleeping in the albergue. So sorry. I would try to be as quiet as I could, but ultimately you really want to pack as much as your bag as you possibly can the night before. I learned this farther along in my Camino, and I started doing this, and it also just made me so much faster in the morning so I could get going and on my way. I would just leave out my toiletry bag and my clothing that I'd be wearing the next day, stuff my clean laundry in my bag on my way out, and that was a lesson learned. When I started packing my bag the night before, it saved me a lot of fussing and fumbling around in the dark in the morning. So that was really great. Okay, mistake number 7, getting from Barcelona to Saint-Jean in one day. Like I mentioned before, I had a flight in and out of Barcelona. If I were to do it again, I would fly in or out of Madrid or Paris. Attempting to reach Saint-Jean from Barcelona was a bit ambitious in one day and quite stressful. The day I happened to choose also fell on a holiday in Spain and France, and I didn't know that in advance. So there's only one bus that runs from Pamplona to Saint-Jean every day, and it leaves at 12 p.m. If you miss that bus, you have to catch the next one the next day. The train that I could take arrived in Pamplona after the bus had already left, so I had to scramble to get a taxi. Fortunately, I got really lucky, and a fellow pilgrim who had already walked the Camino helped me snag a taxi, but it was also way more expensive than just taking the bus. At the end of the day, I was so lucky that I was able to start my Camino on time and keep everything according to plan. It was definitely a Camino miracle. So my suggestion to you is take the early train from Madrid. I think there's one at 7:30, check the timetables, but make sure that you arrive in Pamplona before that 12 p.m. bus. Or if you fly to Paris, you can take the train, and there's a transfer in Bayonne, but that will also get you to Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. So all in all, while these mistakes added some unexpected challenges to my Camino, they were still really valuable lessons. If you're planning your Camino right now, I hope you learned from my mistakes, but also don't stress out too much about it. You're gonna make mistakes on the Camino. We're all human, whether it's your first time or your 5th time walking the Camino. Everyone makes mistakes. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more videos coming soon. Thank you again for watching, and buen camino.